question will be, you came here when you were 24, so you,
Yes, 23 there.
23 now, okay. So, while you were in Italy, like as a child, what was your idea about America, knowing that your father was here and that he was able to work here? What were your ideas, your vision?
Well, first of all, in Italy, we used to think that this is what we had been told, that the United States of America was the America rich America. Canada was poor America. South America was poor America. But this was rich America. So I knew that my father was rich America. In rich America, only I could not understand why he wouldn't send any money at all, because I did not know the depression in those years when I was a child. So I could not reconcile the two things, America and the poverty that still existed in my own household. And had it not been for my mother was a seamstress, I would have starved. We would have starved because my father could not send anything. It was the depression. And so that was the first conflict in my life, in my life, the America and the fact that, you see, I did not see the results, the fruits of that America in my childhood. And of course I was envied by the other children because my father was in America, and yet I envied them, the other children, because they had a father there. And somehow they made me feel that my father was away, and they would boast of the fact that their father was with them. So that was my first trauma. I had no father. To me, father meant, a picture on a wall. And someday, this is how I thought, someday I'm going to show you when my father comes back, how handsome he is, how rich he is, how powerful he is. He's much better than your father's, and so forth and so on. So this was the atmosphere in which I grew up as a child, you see, in my little town. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, when I came here, my first problem was to have to meet my father, and to know that man who was my father, and to get adjusted to him.
Well, what
it was
made...
my discovery, you see.
Mm-hmm. What made
This
you...
is what I treated in that poem, The Difficult Word,
right,
which is now even the subject of my first novel.
The first part of the trilogy.
Featured in the first part of the trilogy, right? Mm-hmm.
Well, what made your father want to come to America?
Well, there was poverty in the little town, and so he went to Canada first.
What was he doing in the town? Was he?
He was a shoemaker, a young shoemaker. He was 21 when he came to America. So, like many others, he applied, and so he had to go to Canada, and to Canada he went. Then illegally he came here because they thought that Canada was poor. They had to to try their luck in America, in rich America.
So he snuck into.
So that's it. And with other paesani came here. A few of them were caught by the police and they were deported. But my father came here. My uncle also came here, and he had to change his name, my uncle, because during the night when they were crossing the frontier from Canada to the United States, the police were there, and so this is what they told each other: in case the police should catch us, we throw our passports away immediately. So he threw his passport away, and the following day he made it, but one day his passport happened to be found near a corpse. Somebody had been killed there, and so they thought that the picture in the passport was the one of the decomposed man. And so out of fear, my uncle had to change his name. So from Pisone he became Pisano. So when I came to this country and I saw, and he came to the port, to Pier 86, to fetch his sister and his nephew. My father was also there, of course, and we went to his house, and I saw a name outside the door, Pisano. I said, but Uncle Joseph, your name should be Pisone, because that was my mom, a proof of prejudice. But I always believe that we Italians, in order to be accepted, have to a certain extent have to give much more than they expect of us. For instance, perhaps we have to give 100%, while other minorities have to give 40%. So in other words, if, this is my opinion, a personal opinion, I may be wrong, if the others have something to learn from you, they accept you. Perhaps you have to be a little better than they. Then they accept you with reverence. I became vice president of the Poetry Society of America. I was the first with an Italian name. That's the only one till now. And I did not experience any prejudice. I was the director of the Catholic Poetry Society of America. For the first time an Italian name was there. And I did not experience any prejudice. But little things help. And so I would like to, and this is what I tell my students all the time, that ours is a very great and grave responsibility. We have to study harder. We have to study every day, every minute, as if to be, as if to expect what may come to us and what may enlighten others. For instance, one day at Lehman, a professor from the Department of Music came to me, said, "Are you an Italian teacher?" I said, "Yes." So I'm looking for the author from the opera from which this aria comes. So, and he told me the aria, of course, mispronounced some words, dal labbro il canto estasiato vola, perhaps he said dal labbro il canto, and said that. I said, oh yes, that is one of my favorite arias. I said, it comes from Verdi's Falstaff. Oh, thank you so much. And, so I'm sure that that man went back to his department with a greater opinion of the Italian section of the Romance languages. Of course, fortunately, I knew the aria because I love operas. Of course, if I had not known the aria, I would have said, I'm sorry, and I would have acknowledged the fact that I did not know. This is after all true scholarship, to admit your ignorance. But I happen to know the aria. So since I studied operas, and I seen to it that I would know more and more about it. I was able to enlighten somebody else, and because of that little incident, I saved Italy's name. I don't know if I make sense, because he had a greater opinion of us. Otherwise he would have said, well, I went into an Italian, and he could not enlighten me. So you see, through my study, through my laboriousness, my daily sacrifice, I was able to enlighten somebody else. And so I'm sure that if there was some prejudice in this man's case, but that day that prejudice collapsed because of that enlightenment. Another incident, a professor of English was speaking on Robert Browning. Very well, I was there, and that professor knew me. And at a certain point, he mentioned the scene, and he said that from because of a possible lapsus, he did not remember something very obviously, the source of what he was speaking about. So very humbly, on my first row, I said, oh, the ring in the book. He said, oh, thank you, yes, of course, thank you, Professor Tusiani. And I'm sure, that man, said, an Italian teacher is also aware of Robert Browning's The Ring in the Book.
Right.
So another prejudice collapsed at that moment. I was able to prove that an Italian can also know English literature. Now, this is very important. So this is what creates this great responsibility in our part. We have to study all the time, to sacrifice ourselves at every moment, trying to foresee all these possible circumstances when some of our knowledge may make another prejudice fall.
Well, do you think...
So only in this way can you be accepted, I believe.
Well, at the time that you first came over here, do you think that some of the prejudice might have had to do with do you think it had more to do with the fact that, say, the war had just been over and Italy had supposedly officially been an enemy, or...
It is possible. Some of the prejudices have any historical reason for me. For instance, you always associate, that uncultured pronunciation of some English words with Italians. Let's say a little bit.
Oh, right.
But you see, if you write those words, this a little bit, an Italian not knowing English would read them a little bit, because we don't have the short I.
Right.
Little. We don't have it in our language. So an Italian would read a little bit. That is an intelligent thing. But other people don't know.
So you think it was more a prejudice stemming from the thought that immigrant people were uneducated?
But yes,
or do you think it was more like a racial thing?
Definitely. Well, yes. The uneducation of our immigrants has something to do with it, of course, because, those people did not know Italian in Italy. They knew that they spoke the dialect. They were illiterate, of course. So they can be just do better their fortune, their luck. So many of them did not even know if they were Italians. They knew that they were Calabresi or Siciliani, you see, and Siciliani did not know Calabresi. They knew each other here. And so out of fear, they remained with themselves. So Sicilians were Sicilians, Calabresi were Calabresi, and so on. And so you form these little Italians, which was the thing to do. And then, of course, there was the hostility on the part of the Irish Church, because this was at the very end of the century. Don't forget that there was the so-called Roman question, when Rome was snatched from the Pope for the unification of Italy. The Pope considered himself a prisoner of the Italians. And this happened from 1870, lasted from 1870 to 1929, when Mussolini and Pius XI made the so-called Concordato, the Vatican Treaty, by which, Italy, the Vatican acknowledged that Italy had the right to unification, but also the Vatican had the right to its own independence. So they came to terms. And so they came to the agreement that the Italian government would recognize the Catholic religion as the only official religion of the state, and that the Catholic marriage would be recognized immediately by the government, and so on and so on. But during those years, the poor immigrants who came here were seen as the enemies of the Pope. And so they were segregated here. And the Irish Church even kept them in basements. They were not admitted to the main church.
So you mean that the Catholic hierarchy that already existed here was dominated by Irish
immigrants? Definitely. Even here in New York, especially, of course. They always had an Irish archbishop, Only you see, in fact, in this novel that I just finished, I described the jubilation of the Belmont section in 1954, a celebration that lasted days and days, and the Italian flags, American flags, and conferees, and all that. I said, what is happening? Well, for the first time in history, an Italian had been made auxiliary bishop of New York. Bishop Pernicone. Now they have the Pernicone school, reception. For the first time in history, in 1954, an Italian became auxiliary bishop.
So the religion, the fact that the Irish immigrants and the Italian immigrants had the Catholic religion in common didn't really bring them together.
Absolutely not. It was just a political thing. Oh yes. The Christian doctrine was not practiced at all. Oh yes. So there are so many factors, you see. So I think, I believe that it is education, true education, solid education, that dispels prejudices. Because I would not take seriously a person, an educated person, or educated person, a person with prejudices. Because education and prejudice do not go together.
Well, how have you always felt your position was, your relationship was to the Italian communities, like the Little Italies of the Bronx, say, like when you first moved to the Belmont area? Did you really feel accepted? I mean, the fact that you were more educated that...
Oh, well, yes, but first of all, I never flunked in my education. When I went to school, I thought they didn't know really what I did. Of course, those who knew were very proud of it, of course. They're proud of the fact that you are a professor, you are a doctor, of course. But then going back to the Belmont section and to prejudices, of course, for instance, I was once engaged to a girl who had been a former student of mine, and this was my friend, and now she was Italian. Now she was from northern Italy, mind you. To imagine what an Irish girl would do. And for the first time, I took her to see a procession of the Blessed Mother, Mount Carmel. It was July 16th. It was a big procession, and of course, as I described the poem, the day after the feast, you see the statue of the Blessed Lady full of dollar bills and constellated with dollar bills and $5 bills and so on. And all these people dressed wearing the scapula, and all of a sudden she began to laugh. She had never seen such a thing in her life. And I said, why are you laughing? And I said, well, I'm laughing. I never saw the Blessed Mother with so many dollar bills. And that hurt me. I could understand why she laughed. But I could also understand that there was a chasm, an abyss between me and her. She did not understand, she would not understand the people I came from, the traditions that were mine. It was an alien world to me. So immediately that laughter of hers, made me suffer. I knew that somehow there were other things, there would be other things that she would not understand about me, but my parents, but my cousins, but our ways of doing things. And she was from northern Italy. You can imagine what an Irish girl would have thought,
Well, what made you decide to move to that neighborhood originally?
Well, because, we went to see a paisan of ours who lived there, 188th and Boiler Place, and my brother was then about to begin elementary grade, and this paisana told my brother, oh, Maria, see, the school, Pernicola school, it's right here. And if you buy this apartment, if you rent this apartment, you see, from the window you'll be able to see little Michael go to school and so on. So this is the place. And my mother, of course, think that she would see little Michael every morning, every afternoon, and 2 steps, immediately she rented the apartment. And so we remained there for 23 years.
And do you think that difference that you just mentioned between the northern Italians and the southern Italians, is there a lot of friction in that neighborhood in general?
There is in Italy, of course, and there is even here. Of course, that friction exists in Italy. In Italy, of course, we are called Polentoni by those who know. We were called Terroni, so the people of the terra, Cafoni, contadini, And we call them polentoni, the people who eat polenta. See, polentoni and terrori. But of course, this is a fiction that stems, I would say, from our medieval communes. Because in the Middle Ages, with the institution of the communes, you also came to the birth of the so-called campanilismo, campanile, the steeple, because of which you see, my steeple is better than yours. And my steeple is better than yours. So my land is better than yours. And so it goes back to that. Right. And even because of this campanilismo, we lost our greatest poet, Alberghieri. You know why? How Dante died? Well, in 1321, some sailors from Venice happened to be in Ravenna, from not far from Venice, really. Now Ravenna, as you know, is a famous city because of its Byzantine art. So these Venetian sailors began to say, we Venetians are the lords of the earth. Think of our Venetian Empire. This was before the discovery of America. And the sailors of Ravenna, yes, but we in our city have the greatest tombs, the greatest emperors of the Byzantine Empire are here, are buried here. We were great once, yes, but we are great now, but, of course, a knife was used, and one Venetian sailor was killed. Now, the Prince of Ravenna had to explain this incident to the Venetian Doge. So, to avoid war, so he thought of sending an influential person to Venice to explain the fact, to make the Doge understand that these things can happen, children, you know, these young men. And so he decided to send Dante Alighieri. Dante went, explained, pacified, tamed the Venetian lion, but on his return to Ravenna he contracted fever, malaria, and a few days afterwards he died. Of course he had to die, yes, I believe in fate, but that was the incident, see, because of the quarrel there, the quarrel caused by campanilism. Right. My land is better than yours, Calabria is better than Sicily, things like that. And all these things came, of course, had to come even here, because these things led with you.
Well, what was the life like in these neighborhoods, like say in the Belmont area, when you first arrived? Were the people
It was very
really
peaceful. My mother's maiden name. I said, yes, I know it should be Pisone, but I'll tell you the story someday, and you will understand why we had to change our names. And this was my first encounter with America, so to speak. Yeah. Yeah. But even this, you see, I'm also telling in my novel.
Right.
My uncle's experience. And my uncle is one of the main characters in the novel. Because he was a wonderful man. There is also a poem in Gentemia. And he had a fig tree in his yard, in the backyard, like backyard they call it. And that fig, the only fig tree, meant Italy to him. So it was the Mediterranean, the symbol of the Mediterranean climate of Italy. And you should have seen the way he watered it, the way he cared for it, the way he veiled it before winter came. Because if that fig died, Italy died. It was a little puny thing, you know, insignificant thing, but to him it was Italy. And so all his love went into that tree. And he was so proud of those few little figs which he would bring to his friends. And he said, I'm going to veil my tree, mind you, not to cover it up, veil, because he thought of it as a statue. It should be there when the museum was closed. And then when spring came again, it had to be unveiled. He could not think of covering it, bandaging it, as you would bandage a wound. It was a living creature, a thing of art. It had to be bared. See? So there was poetry, you see,
Right.
in this emigrati of ours. Was poetry, the innate poetry that was coming up in every action there.
Well, when he first came here, he came with your father.
Yes,
To the States.
yes, he came a few months before, but then he met my father in Canada, then together. Only my uncle, yes, came I think a few months after my father.
Mm-hmm.
Then another also crossed the frontier with them, was caught by the police, and he was deported, a cousin of ours.
Well, did
Who
they?
made his fortune in Italy, he's a millionaire in Italy now, so he
Really?
lives in America, right? So, right.
Well, did they tell you any stories about the experience of coming across the water in the boats?
Oh yes, I've been told, and it is very strange, I've been told that, first of all, in those days, it took them, I think, 15, 17, 18 days to get here. And so they traveled, I would say they did not have the best commodities, and perhaps like herds, which is true. So I thought that things were the same when I came here. And so they told me to keep my best suit for landing day. So I got to change, I put everything away, for the 7 days, you see. So
It only took you 7 days.
Yeah, 7 days, and so so I was very sorry then for myself when I noticed that things had been changed, things had changed, and things were different. And but you see, I kept my best suit for landing day. This is what I've been told by the old people, those who had come here before.
Right.
So it was rather embarrassing for me to see myself wearing the same sweater for the 7 days, because I kept my my suit for the landing day. And you see, I could have had much fun, or more fun dancing and so. But because of that one sweater, I felt very embarrassed.
Well, when you came over here, it was wartime, right?
It was soon after the war. The war had ended in 1945, and then I came here in 1947 September, so it was one of the best trips. Really.
Was there any other? Did that influence the decision to come over? Was it really getting much harder?
My father had called for us, and we could have come, I suppose, a year earlier. But since I was in my last year at the University of Naples, and so I wanted to finish, so I had to discuss my thesis. So after that, a month after my thesis became, and but we could have come earlier because my father had been in the war, had been drafted. He was a soldier here, and so my mother had top priority as the wife of a veteran. And because of that, so we became immediately. But I had to finish the university. That's why I stayed a little longer.
Was your father sent to Europe?
No, thank God. He was already 42 when he was drafted, so he was sent to Texas. There he stayed for 6 months. Then President Roosevelt sent all those people home because they were already too old. And but my father, of course, was a veteran, because of those 6 months. Had he been sent to Italy, it would have been more or less tragic, because had been drafted too. So you would have had father fighting against the son.
Really? Well, were you serving?
Of course. See, of course. I'd been drafted by the Italian army, see. So I was a young soldier in Italy.
And this didn't...
and I did not know that my father had been, because there was no correspondence during the war, I did not know that my father had been drafted here. I knew this detail when the first American soldiers came to Italy after the liberation, and one of the paesani came to see an old aunt of his in my little town. And so, of course, he wanted to locate us, and he told us that father was okay, and he had been drafted, and that's it.
Well, had your father become a citizen at that point?
Because he was an illegal alien, yes, he was not yet a citizen. Then, soon after the war, after he was discharged, President Roosevelt passed a law by which all the alien residents could apply for citizenship. So my father became a citizen even because he had been a soldier.
But how could he become a soldier before
Yes,
that?
they drafted even the illegal aliens. Yes, they drafted them, all right.
And for you, did you have to interrupt your studies to serve in the war? Were you fighting?
My service, was very short because 2 months after I was drafted, the war was over.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, the war was over.
So were you sent away from your town at all, or?
Just from Forja, I was sent to Naples. So it was in my university town, you see, so it did not disturb my studies at all. Because the war came to an end soon afterwards, which was my luck.
Well, what was your father's feelings all those years that he was here alone working? Did he think all that time he was going to be able to just bring you over any day?
Well,
or
until the war, because of the fact that he was an illegal alien, perhaps he did not think of coming for us until the law was passed to the effect that they could send for their relatives. So I don't know what his feelings were, but I'm sure he thought of us. Then during the war, I'm sure he thought of us, although he did not write to us.
And before that, you were corresponding?
Yes,
regularly?
a letter once in a while, and of course, you know how these young people are, you know. I'm sure that he had his distractions, even during the Depression, and after all, tried to understand the situation. He came here when he was 21 and a half. Then 6 months afterward, he was told that he had a son, but he had never seen that son. That son was to him a piece of paper, photo, just as father meant to be, just that. So I don't know what his true feelings really were, because you have to be present, you have to see the child, you have to touch him. So I don't know. So I'm sure that he developed this sense of paternity, perhaps when he saw me, or I would say perhaps when my brother was born the following year. And so he tried to be to my little brother what he could not be to me, or I tried to look for him what he would have done for me had he been in Italy, and I grew up with him under his eyes.
Right.
And so I don't know, it's a mystery which I'm trying to develop, to explore this novel.
Right. Well, did he ever show any, regrets about coming to America? Like, all that time he was here alone struggling, did he ever talk to you about feeling homesick or wondering if he made the right choice to come over here?
No, we never discussed that, you see, because you see, in an Italian family, father is always right, and a son must always remain inferior to him. And a father would never praise his son in his presence. So my father never discussed these things with me, and although he was very proud of me, he would keep newspaper clippings, and show them to his friends. But when I was in his presence, I was nobody. I had to be nobody, because I was just a son, and father had to know better. Even in the field of your specialization, he had to know better simply because he was the father. This is the Italian attitude. And that was one of the greatest sorrows to me. I wanted to be praised from the man. And praise from him would have meant so much to me. Because you see, since I did not know him well, perhaps a praise would have meant that I had been accepted by him. But I was never praised openly. I even remember a little incident. I was near, where the Botti funeral home is?
Yes.
Under 87th Street, 88.
Right.
And after right. There are benches across the street, right? It's a little park, right? We were there in the summer, so there were many children playing around us. And then we saw a little sign. There was a pizzeria not across the street from Botti. I don't know if it is still there. And he said, now tell me, why is it pizzeria? Shouldn't it be pizzeria? And I said, no, Father, you see, because when you have a two-syllable word, the A changes to E. So for instance, take lana, wool. So lana, see, two-syllable word. So the second A changes to E. So laneria. So pizza, pizzeria. So I gave a beautiful philological explication of the phrase. After all, I was a professor of literature. I knew my philology. He looked at me and said, well, still, you don't convince me. I still believe it should be pizzeria. He had the dialect in his mind. And enough dialect is pizzeria. So he could not, but he could not see, he could not say, Joe, thanks, no, because an Italian father had to know more. So you never give you the satisfaction. But when he was with his friends, he would inflict all those paper clippings on them. My son, see, this is what my son did. Say, look, read this. So it was almost, it was charming. But you see, I still realized that he was still the typical Italian father.
Right. What was his idea, his feelings about your decision to pursue, more academic career?
You see, when I came here, I'd already finished. I'd already my doctorate, right? I had my doctorate, and so you had to take the fact, that I was a professor, so I was looking for a job. I found a job eventually, so I think I was sure he was very proud. In fact, when I came to this country, the very first night after that big opulent dinner at my uncle's house, we went to a hall which my father had rented for the occasion.
Was this in the Bronx?
It's in the Bronx, 214. And all the paesani had received an invitation. So we were welcomed officially, mother and I, by all the paesani. And my father, of course, had to pay for the sandwiches, the beer, and so on. And so I was new at the town, and then I had to give a little speech, and there were other little speeches from the paesani here welcoming me. So my father had to pay for all that, you see, but he wanted to invite the paesani, he wanted them to see his son, his wife, you see, so it was very moving, very moving. And so they told me that while the day I'd received my doctorate at the University of Naples, so it was 2 months before we came here, my father had the free scotch for everybody who entered his shoe repairing store. Everybody will go there and wish him luck, congratulate him, and they will give free scotch to everybody, saying, my son is a doctor, my son is a professor. So, and of course I didn't know this, I found this later.
Right.
But he was very proud, very proud. And yet, when I came here, he was the father. I was nobody. So, but that is typical of all the Italian fathers, I would say. At least in those days it was so.
Right. Well, what was it like for your mother? Did she speak about it at all? Like, having lived in Italy all those years and supporting you on her own pretty much.
Yes.
How did she have to live her life in the village? Like, it was just considered, did she have to live almost like a widow, in the sense of being apart from society?
Well, first of all, mine was not the only case. There were many, many other children whose fathers were in America. And so there were many, many women like my mother who had to support their children because of depression for a time. So I would say there were hundreds of all such cases. And so I was not the only one. And now your question was actually
about the women. I mean, she was very young too. Your mother was only
now,
20.
Because, right, yeah, she was 20, 21. Yes,
Right.
yes, when my father came here. And for all those years, all those women, those husbands in America had to behave. So if they had to go to church, they had to be escorted by their mothers-in-law, or their mothers, and then they had to behave as if they were just little virgins.
Mm-hmm.
They could not go to a wedding because their husbands, were not with them. It was a very, I would say, a sad life. I feel sorry for all those women. So their only love went for the children.
Mm-hmm.
Their children were their only idea, their only goal, to work for them, to care for them. And they could go out with them, with the children. But to go to a church alone, no. To go to a shrine alone, no. That was a man.
To go to a cafe.
Oh, forget it. Forget it. But of course, times have changed.
Right, yeah.
Times have changed. They don't care that. They do what they have to do.
But now, at the time when you both found out you were going to be coming to America, do you think there was some conflicts for your mother? I mean, she had to leave her life
I know,
behind her
but
and just
of course,
change.
But yes, but we had lost the war. Italy was a disaster. Our cities had been bombed. They were in ruins. So perhaps it was our inner desire to leave to America. And then it was our most legitimate, understandable desire to join my father and the husband, you see. So it was a godsend to invitation to America, I would say.
So you think that the feeling was that the old life didn't exist in Italy anymore anyway? I mean, since the war had destroyed so much.
Yes, I would say so, yes. But of course it was the aspiration of every family to join the husband and the father in America. Yes.
What were your feelings about the war at the time? Did you feel patriotic towards Italy, or?
Actually, I was too young to have I would say, any philosophy about the war, I would say. Of course, we had grown under Mussolini, so we had been told that everything that was Roman had to be great in the world. We had been told that Italy had a right to an empire, that Italy had a right to fight the imperialists, people, so England, America, and then unfortunately there had been an alliance with Hitler, and then I was only 18 when Mussolini fell. So I was not old enough, but sure enough. And then you see to realize all this, and then to have a specific philosophy about it, as I was saying before. And then you see, even in those early years of my life, I had the literary tendencies. I written my first book of poetry when I was 18. So you would say that my head was in the clouds, in literary clouds. And so a war meant very little to me. Perhaps I didn't like it because I only saw it as a slaughter, and to be Beatrice meant much more.
Right.
Dante's Beatrice. And so that's it. Then I started my university soon afterwards.
So you didn't really have any political inclinations?
Absolutely.
When
Absolutely. Soon after the war, I'd been invited to join the Democrazia Cristiana, the Democratic Party. And of course, I was for it, but I did not join officially. I didn't join it officially because, you see, somehow I did not see myself, going from one place to another, speaking, giving a political speech for this or for that audience. I could not see myself. So this may tell you that I've never been inclined to see politics. That has never been my thing.
So when you first arrived here, and what was the experience like of seeing your father, of being in America, of getting this welcome?
I have narrated all this in this poem with a difficult word. So this word is Papa. I want to say Papa because it's the word that I practice most. The best word for me became the most difficult to pronounce because I never pronounced it. And to me the father was just that force, but when I saw that man, that ordinary man in the crowd, I had to say Papa, but I couldn't say it. Perhaps I said it in my mind, but not in my heart. I had to say that this man is my father, and I've been told that he was my father, but yet I was the first. This is very strange, that's why I say perhaps blood is thicker than water, that we were on the ship, Mother and I, and there was this huge crowd at the pier, these people waving hands and handkerchiefs, and immediately my eye rested on that man, my father. I said, Mom, that's my father. And she said, yes. And he was waving, but immediately my eye went on him. Immediately.
Right.
As instinctively as possible.
Well, what was he doing here? Had he opened the shoe repair?
Yes, he opened a shoe repairing store
in the Bronx?
In the Bronx, yes, on White Plains Road, near 213th Street. And he had been there several years until he was drafted. Then he had to sell everything. Then when he came back, he reopened it. Before he went from Canada, he went to Altoona, Pennsylvania, where my grandfather had been as a miner. He worked in one of those mines there. And so there were some friends in Altoona, Pennsylvania, so my father went there. Then from Altoona he came to New York and he opened this village store. And he remained there until 1948, when my brother was born, so the after he came. So my parents began a new life, because of this new child. My father was 46 then, and my mother was 45, and my brother was born. And then, because he had a friend working at Morgan Post Office in Manhattan, his friend told him to apply for a job there. And he was a veteran. That was his advantage. So he got the job. And so he left. He was tired of being a shoemaker. And because of his age, he had to stand on his feet all day long. He didn't take it any longer. So he joined the post office and became a federal employee, which he was very proud. Right? So he had to wear his uniform, and he was very happy.
He was a letter carrier, or he worked in the office?
No, he was an operator, elevator man. Yeah. And so his uniform, so his job was very easy and very friendly manner. He would greet everybody, took the elevator, he knew them all. He was Papa, Michael, to all of them. And he was very happy. And he stayed there 20 years and he was 70. Yeah. And many a time he would take little Michael, my brother, to the post office, and very proudly beaming, and he would say, my son, my American son. He's an American son. He was born here with two names, Michael Dante.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead. You were just sat there?
So as I was saying, to names are rare. So I was Giuseppe. My father was Michele, but my brother here was Michael T. Tusiani Jr. And so to everybody say my American son with two names, Michael Dante Tusiani Jr. That was his pride.
He's one of the richest in America.
Oh, yes.
Two names.
And then you see, so after he went to work at Morgan Post Office station, Morgan Station, and a paisano of ours, that's out of envy, sent an anonymous letter because they wanted my father to lose his job. So they accused him, they called him a communist. Now this happened during the McCarthy years. You remember Senator McCarthy?
Right.
Oh. So it took just an anonymous letter to doom a person there. It was terrible. I had the impression then that we were living in a police state. It was terrible, you have no idea. And so there was a trial. I had to beg a friend of mine, a lawyer, to defend my father. And so my father went there that day. And since he didn't go to church then, he had been president of the Dante Alighieri Society and perhaps of another socialist organization, that was his temperament, the old style, and he was always an anti-fascist. So that day, instead of holding a rosary in his hands, he had a piece of paper. I didn't know what it was, I was there. Finally I realized it was the picture of my little brother. That was his amulet, you see, the thing that gave him strength, and the picture of the American son with two names. And then of course he was acquitted. And immediately after the proceeding, he went to the judge. Your Honor, I want to show you something. And his honor was rather surprised to be stopped in such a way. He was going to his chamber. He said, "What is it, Mr. Tusiani?" Your Honor, this is my son. Showed him the picture, my American son with two names. And I said, "Oh, I thought it was your grandfather." "My son, Your Honor, my son." Because of the difference, because my father was 48 then. And so, but it was charming, the fact that he had to keep that piece of paper, the amulet, the one thing that gave him strength, the American son with two names.
Well, that must have been so upsetting for him to be, was he pretty patriotic about America? I mean, did he like America?
Oh yes, he was. He was against Mussolini and pro-America. But you see, he was the president of the Dante Alighieri, and it took very little then to label these foreign organizations as communist organizations. So even an organization with socialistic tendencies was labeled as a communistic organization.
But did they think he was like a security threat at the post office?
During the McCarthy years, the very word communist was sufficient to doom you to disaster, to oblivion. Yes. So that was his first adventure at the post office, but he was acquitted, so he went out for 18 more years.
Where did you live when you first came over and joined your father? Did he have a house at that time? Were you living in a building?
No, the building, yes, and always in the building until we came to this section here, the Precarity.
Was there
and this is house that belongs to my brother, really.
Right. Was there an Italian community in that area, the 214 And
Yes, all our paisani lived there. So we had we used to rent that famous hall where I've been the first night on many occasions when our paisani had to collect money for the victims of an earthquake in Italy. There they met, and we used to see one another at weddings and funerals, at least weddings and funerals.
Right.
When there was a wedding, all the paisani were there, and when there was a funeral, all of them were there, of course.
Was that like a comfort for you, like coming from Italy, being able to go right into this
Yes,
community?
well, of course, I saw all the paisani, and I could speak Italian to them that evening when I had to give my little speech. And yes, and then they would see me every day, professore, come sta? Buongiorno, buongiorno. And they would tell me about their children in Italy, their grandchildren, their nephews, and lo conoscevi, did you know him, things like that. So it was more or less like home, which is very detrimental if you want to enter the American field. If you remain in that ghetto, that is very dangerous. You remain in the Italian ghetto, you will never rise to the rank of a full-fledged American citizen. So, more or less, you have to detach yourself from the Italian environment that may keep you down, keep you linked, chained forever to Italy. I don't know if that is good. So I met one day, and that was the most important day in my life, a very great woman, Frances Ringwald, very famous writer. She was a Vinci Guerra.
She was
Vinci Guerra, she was Italian. So she translated an Italian name, Vinci Guerra, into Win War, because she told me that when she had to publish, she was about to publish her first novel, which was based, I think, on Francesco Darini from Dante's Divine Comedy. A publisher called and told her that her name, Vinci Guerra, was too big for the spine of the book. So could she choose a pseudonym or something? So she thought of translating her last name into Ringwald. So Ringwald she remained for her subsequent books. And she, who was then very famous, told me, "Dear Joseph, if you want to do something for our family Italians, leave them now. Just be an American, enter the American scene, learn English well, so that you may be able to write, to create in English. Only then will you be able to do something for them. But if you remain close to them, you won't understand. At first it didn't seem to make any sense to me, but now it does. So it was she who introduced me to the American world. So through her, who was then, as I told you, very famous, I was able to meet, let's say, people such as John Dante, Greta Garbo, Belgian Thompson, Cuban music, and Reginald Marsh, field painting, John Cutchos, field painting, and Farrell, the writer, Stan Zalonik, said they all became my friends because of her. So I could see America, all of, the entire nation, the entire spectrum. So not only the Italian minority, but the Jewish minority, the Irish minority, through the Starzlonik and the series of novels by Farrell, and then the WASP society through John Gunther, the Highland world through Greta Garbo, the world of music through Reggie Thompson and Misha Elman. And apropos of Misha Elman, he was a very great violinist. He used to accompany Caruso. Yeah. And but there's so many records here with Caruso accompanied by Misha Elman. Misha Elman was a Russian violinist, one of the greatest violinists in the century. he had had a quarrel with Tuscany. Now, we were at a party, one evening, it was, I think, at the house of John Koch, the painter. John Koch was very famous, so famous that he had been invited to paint the princess, one of the British royal, Queen Elizabeth, when she was princess or something like that, because she became a queen for the cover of Time magazine, something like that. He was the one, so he was very famous. So that night, Misha Elman, not knowing that Francis Winwood was Italian, began to denigrate Toscanini, with whom he had had a quarrel. And said, well, Toscanini, after all, what do you expect from these Italians? As soon as he said those sacrilegious words, Francis Winwood, who was very tiny, seemed to become tall, 10 feet tall. He said, I am Italian. Said, and you should not take Italy's name in vain. I know, let me tell all these gentlemen why you are so rabid against Toscanini and Italy, because Toscanini did not deem you good enough for him. And of course, the party seemed to be ruined. And so Mrs. Koch said, oh, Francis, please, and I was embarrassed, so I said, Francis, perhaps we should go. She said, no, he should go. He doesn't belong here. And that was, that gives you an idea of Francis Winwood, a magnificent bride and a magnificent Italian.
Well, I was going to ask you.
I was telling you that it was she who introduced me to this new world. So I discovered America, literary America, through her. And so I was able to create an English venture, and now I'm able to do something for my fellow Italians.
Right.
In English, not in Italian. So if I say something in their favor, my word is read by more people.
Right.
This is the point.
Well, I guess I have two questions right now. One is, did you feel like you were pretty much accepted by Americans when you came? Like you mentioned, like an Italian ghetto, and I mean, it has a kind of a negative connotation that maybe American society wasn't quite so open-minded as to accept.
I understand the question, and it is a very important question. I'm glad you asked. I would say that if I were asked to give one example